पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौभक्त वृंदा। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So today I am reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter number 2, contents of the Gita summarized, and text number 21. Okay. Can anyone tell me, can see my screen?
Prabhuji, we can see your screen.
Okay, thank you. Please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Katam sa Purusha Partha.
Kam ghatayati hantikam.
Kam gatayati hantikam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Katam sa Purusham Partha.
Ghatayati hantikam.
Kam gatayati hantikam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Veda Vinasinam Nityam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Katam sa Purusha Partha.
Kam ghatayati hantikam.
Kam gatayati hantikam.
Can you chant, Kirti?
Yes, Prabhuji. Veda Vinasinam Nityam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katam sa Purusha Partha.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Kam gatyati hantikam.
Kam ghatayati hantikam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katam sa Purusha Partho.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Kam Gatayati Hantikam.
Kam ghatayati hantikam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Veda Vinashinam Nityam.
Yaenam Ajabhayam.
Yaenam Majamavyayam.
Katham sa Purusha Partha.
Katam sa Purusha Partha.
Kam ghatayati hantikam.
Kam
Ghatayati hantikam.
hantikam.
Vedavinashinam nityam
Vedavinashinam
Vedavinashinam
nityam
nityam
yaenam ajamavyayam
yaenam
yaenam
ajamavyayam
kathang sha purushah partha
katham sa
sa
purusha
purusha
partha
partha
kanghatayati hantikam.
kan gatayati
ghatayati
kam.
hantikam. Translation and purport. Kirti, would you like to read translation and purport?
Yes, Prabhuji. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Do I read the purport also, Prabhuji?
Yes, yes.
Everything has its proper utility, and a man who is situated in a complete knowledge knows how and where to apply a thing for its proper utility. Similarly, violence also has its utility, and how to apply violence rests with the person in knowledge. Although the justice of the peace awards capital punishment to a person condemned for murder, the justice of the peace cannot be blamed because he orders violence to another person according to the codes of justice. In Manu Samhita, the law book for mankind, it is supported that a murderer should be condemned to death so that in his next life he will not have to suffer for the great sin he has committed. Therefore, the king's punishment of hanging a murderer is actually beneficial. Similarly, when Krishna orders fighting, it must be concluded that violence is for supreme justice, and thus Arjuna should follow the instruction, knowing well that such violence committed in the act of fighting for Krishna is not violence at all, because at any rate the man, or rather the soul, cannot be killed. So for the administration of justice, so-called violence is permitted. A surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure him. Therefore, the fighting to be executed by Arjuna at the instruction of Krishna is full knowledge, so there is no possibility of sinful reaction.
Thank you. So we have been, I guess, discussing this idea about for quite few verses since last maybe almost 10 verses for last 10 verses. So several words were used to describe the soul. So how was the soul described? Does anyone remember how the soul was described by Krishna so far? Okay, I have a document here.
One was Dehi
Okay,
and Avinashi.
yes. So
Ajut.
body called Deha, but the soul is Dehi. Actually, I didn't have that word. That's very good. Should go here. It's 13, right? Dehinosminyata Dehe.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yeah. So these are some of the words. The very first one Krishna has talked about is the existence, the idea of existence in verse number 12. He described that everybody existed in the past, they're existing now, and they will exist in the future. So this was the very first thing after chastising Arjuna, Ashocchvanan Vashocham Prajnavadanshcha Bhashase Gatasuna Gatasunshcha Narocha Pandita. So Krishna, he told Arjuna, while speaking learned words, you're mourning, you're lamenting for something that's not worthy of grief. And after he told them that he told him that a Pandita will not lament, for the dead are living. He meant the body. Gata asun means from which the life has gone. Agata asun, from which the life has not gone, means the body that dies, and the body is the one that takes birth. He said in the next word that the soul exists is forever. Natvenaham jatu nasam natvam neme janadipaha nachayvana bhavishyamaha sarve vayam param. Na asam na. Asam means existed. Na asam means not existed. Na asam na means it's not that it did not exist. Krishna was using double negative. Oh, Arjuna, it is not that we did not exist in the past. It is not that we will not exist in the future. So asam and bhavishyamaha, they're talking about the existence. So Krishna said the soul exists forever. And he also described soul as dehi, means that which is in the body. Deha means body, dehi means the soul. So there he talked about this concept that the soul continues to exist in this body while the body goes through these transformations. From dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram, yavanam and jara, the boyhood, the youth and the old age. So the soul existed, it had a particular state when the body undergo under these changes. Now in physics, there's something called law of inertia. It states that a body, if it's in a state of rest, it will stay in a state of rest. If it is in motion, it will continue to be in the state of motion until you apply some force for it to stop. It will keep going. So what stops a vehicle when it's moving? If a car is moving, what will stop the car?
Brake.
Okay. If you don't brakes, if you don't apply brakes, what will stop?
Some other vehicle in front of it.
Say if there is no other vehicle and you are accelerating and moving, how else can you stop? Say if you don't have brakes in the car, for example.
By going up a hill?
The first step, the first thing you do is you take
By
your...
hitting it to something.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can do that too. But you'll get hurt. So you'll take your foot off the gas first. That's the first thing you do, right? No more acceleration. And if there is no acceleration, will it ever stop or not?
It will.
It will stop eventually, right? But what stops it? According to law of physics, what will stop it?
Friction.
It's the friction that will stop. So
External applied force.
Yes, the force in the form of friction. The tires, they're hitting the ground, they're moving, but there's a friction on the ground, right? So eventually that friction will stop it. So friction is the external force that is stopping. If there was no friction, the object will move continuously. The friction of the road is there, and the friction of the air, it's going against the air, right? The air pressure is there. And there's some gravity from the earth. All these forces are being applied, and therefore it stops. Otherwise, it will continue to go. So here saying Krishna, the soul, it will continue to take another body. In this body, the body is, it's going into the childhood body, the youth body, the old body, and then at death, it will go into another body. So this process of going into another body should continue. That's Krishna's theory. And which is similar to the law of physics, first law of Newton. And then 216, na abhavaha. Actually, na abhavaha. There is no change for the soul. And in 217, he uses this word avinashi, avyaya. Both mean imperishable, indestructible. Or you could say vinasha could be complete destruction, or avyaya means gradual extinction. But both convey the meaning of it. It is not imperishable, it's not indestructible. And another aspect, he said, the soul is pervaded throughout the body. Yena idam sarvam tatam. Now, in the 9th chapter, he says, Maya tatamidam sarvam, jagadavyakta murtina. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. But here Krishna has been talking about the body, specifically about the body. From there, he knows when he's talking about the body and the soul. So here, idam means the body. It's not the universe and everything. We are not pervaded everywhere. We are just pervaded in our body. That's it. And then nityam, eternal. We call the soul as eternal. Sharirin or shariri. So sharira is the body. And sharirin means one who is in the body. It is soul, just like deha and dehi. So sharira and shariri. And anashi is same as their avinashi. And apameya, immeasurable. You cannot measure the soul because actually it has no physical dimensions. And then he also said, na hanti, na hanyate. How does that verse go? 219. Na hanyatanyamane sharire. Is that the one? 219. What's the verse? Oh, okay. I see, that's later probably. 220 is Najayate. 219. What is 219?
Natve vedam jatunasam, that one?
That is 212.
Okay, I'm bringing it.
Yaenam vetti
Okay.
hanta.
Yes, yeah. Yaenam vetti hantaram yachayanyate hatam. Ubhautaun vijaneto nayam hanti na hanyate. Two characters of the soul. Na hanti, na hanyate. One is active voice, one is passive. Hanti is active, it doesn't kill. Hanyate is passive, it is not killed. In English, we have active voice and passive voice. So the soul doesn't kill and the soul is not killed. And then again in verse 220, na jayate na mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah ajo nitya shashvatoyam purano na hanyate hanyamane sharire. And that verse specifically talked about 6 kinds of transformations, yesterday's discussion. What are the 6 transformations the soul undergoes? Not the soul, the body.
Birth, adolescence.
Birth, old age,
Disease.
Disease, okay.
And death.
Rose produces some effects, gradually dwindles, and at last vanishes into
Yes.
oblivion.
Yes. So it takes birth, that's the very first one. and it is for some time. It grows, it produces products, it dwindles, which is the old age, and then finally it dies. So birth, death, old age is somebody said birth, death, disease, old age. So birth, death, old age are the three aspects of it. Okay, you could say the disease causes the eventual killing. These stages it goes through. And these six Krishna is mentioned in the word Jayate, means birth, Mriyate means dies. Soul never takes, soul never dies. And soul doesn't come into existence. It's after birth it comes into existence. And Krishna is negating that because it's always there. It's not that it came like a tree and then it existed for some time. And it doesn't grow, which is Nabhuya. It's like coming again and again. It's transforming to some other form. It doesn't do that. Nabhuya. And it is Purana. Purana it's here the word Purana could be oldest, but there's another meaning. Purana means Pura means old, and Na indicates new, Nava. So the Acharyas explained Purana is even though it is old, it's still new. That means it doesn't dwindle. So we are old. When we become old, we are dwindling. It causes dwindling. But this is Purana, but still Yavana. It's Pura, old, but it's new. And then Shashvata. Shashvata, it's permanent. There is no decaying happening. And then Na Hanyate, it's not killed. Same as Na Mriyate, it doesn't die. So in this way, the soul, the sixth transformation will not happen to the soul. It happens only to the body. So everything that we read today, Avinashi, Nityam, Ajam, Avyayam, these are all discussed already in the previous things. And you could see, it seems certain things are repeated. Nitya, Ajo Nityam is also here. So why is Krishna repeating these things? Did Krishna become old and he had Alzheimer's disease? Why is Krishna repeating certain things? And he will repeat again in the next, the following, not next verse, 23 and 24 also he repeats. Any guess why is Krishna repeating? So Gopi is saying repetition signifies emphasis.
I was going to say the same thing, emphasis.
So repetition of something important is necessary. Even when we have to memorize shloka, we repeat. So Krishna has to tell us this thing again and again, these aspects. So why is Krishna speaking this about that the soul cannot kill anybody or cannot cause anybody to kill? One who knows this understands that the soul doesn't kill anyone or cause anyone to kill. Because Arjuna said, we enjoy by killing all the superiors who are like our gurus, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood. Gurun hatva hi mahanubhavan. It's better to live by begging. So they're talking about we'll be killing these people. But Krishna is saying, no, you will not kill anyone. So, kam ghatayati kam hanti. Kam hanti. Whom does it kill? The soul. Soul does not kill. And kam ghatayati. Now you may be thinking, I am telling you to kill. How can I make you to kill? I am a soul. How can I make you to kill? And actually these other people are souls. How can they be killed? And how can I make you kill and how can you kill? So by this logic, Krishna is explaining, first of all, for you, there is no reason to lament because they exist forever. And don't think you are killing because the soul cannot kill. Nahanti, nahanyate, it cannot be killed. So through these various ways, Krishna is telling Arjuna that it cannot be killed. And now in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about violence. He says violence has its purpose, but violence should not be committed by anyone and everyone. Only a person in knowledge knows how to apply violence. So, and what is the knowledge that a person has? That person has the knowledge that the soul cannot be killed. And he also has the knowledge of the scriptural injunctions. And he's actually, his goal is peace. To uphold peace, he can apply violence. So the scriptures, Manu Sanhita, says when a murderer is killed, it is beneficial for him because otherwise he has to undergo a lot of suffering for what he has done according to law of karma. So this is sort of atonement type of thing which nullifies the sin. So when this punishment is awarded, then his sin goes away. Therefore, it is beneficial for the murderer. And it is beneficial for the society. Other people also will see and learn that this should not be done. So these are some of the things Srila Prabhupada taught. And in this particular case, Arjuna is being asked by who? Krishna to fight. So therefore, when Krishna says something, there is no sin involved. This is very important to understand. Because where does the law come from? Dharmantu sakshat bhagavat pranitam. Dharma is put forward by Krishna. In 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the story of Ajamila. Ajamila was a very sinful person. He committed so many sins. He was actually born in a nice Brahmana family. So having taken birth in Brahmana family, he was worshipping the Lord, he was worshipping Shaligrams. And in those days, you get married at a very young age. So he got married. He was in his youth. And one day he went to collect flowers. And he sees a Shudra embracing Shudrani. And he becomes attracted to her. So she was a prostitute. And he goes to her and then he lives with her, he marries her, and he neglects his wife and parents. And he commits a lot of sinful activities to maintain that family. And he begets a lot of children. And even when he was 80 years old, he was so lusty, he still had a small boy. And out of the mercy of the Lord, he was inspired to name the child Narayana. So he gives the child the name Narayana. And when he was on the deathbed about to die, he sees these cruel figures coming at him, the Yamadutas. Out Narayana, Narayana. He calling out the child Narayana because he was very attached to the boy. But as soon as he uttered the name, Vishnu Dutas appeared. And just as Madhut, they are going to bind this body of this Ajamila, and his soul is absorbed in that subtle body. So they bind him and drag him out of the body. But about to do that, actually, Vishnu Duta says, stop, stop. And they were surprised, Yamadutas. And because Vishnu Dutas, they're devotees of the Lord, they're so powerful. When they said stop, Yamaduta actually couldn't do anything. They stopped. Who are you? And they challenged the Yamadutas. Why are you taking him? Oh, this man, he has committed so many sinful acts. And you're asking that why are we taking him? His destiny is hell for what he has done. Uncountable sins he has committed. The Vishnudutas, no, you cannot take him because he has chanted the name Narayana. The Yamadutas get frustrated. They go to Yamaraj. And they're angry. Who the hell are people? Are there more than one? Is there more than one master? Who is the master? You are the master. And we are acting on behalf of you. But someone else came and they stopped us today. It's like the police officers, they go and they arrest somebody and then someone else comes. The state police probably goes and then the federal folks come and stop them. And they're frustrated. And then Yamaraj says, actually, we do not have any jurisdiction on anybody who chants the holy names. They're not our jurisdiction. Anybody who chants holy name, we cannot touch them. You can only bring to me that person who never chanted the name with his tongue. That person who never bowed his head in front of Vishnu. Only that person you can bring to me. But anybody who has chanted the holy name, we cannot do anything. And this is the order of the Lord. And dharma comes from Krishna, whatever he says. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavat pranita. Whatever he says is dharma. And it is not very easy to know dharma. Only the 12 Mahajanas, Swayambhu Narada Shambhu, Kumara Kapilo Manuhu, Prahlado Janako Bhishma Balirvayasa Kirvayo, Dvadashaite Vijayanino. 12 of us, we know the dharma. It's very difficult. Dharma comes from the Lord. And here for Arjuna, directly Krishna is in front of him and he's telling him, do this. And through Arjuna, he's telling all of us. So whatever Krishna speaks is dharma. We should not doubt, oh, Krishna is saying this, may be true or may not be true. Whatever Krishna says, it is dharma. And there is no sinful reaction when we perform activities according to what Krishna says. So we have to realize that we are not this body. It is not so easy. This is the second chapter itself. This is the beauty of our philosophy. This is ABC. How does Bhagavad Gita begin? Bhagavad Gita begins with, you are a spirit soul. Forget about everything else. Krishna, right away, he's establishing the Siddhanta that we are not this body. This is not the case in other religions. It's very difficult for them to understand the concept of soul and all these things. And some of them, they preserve the dead bodies, hoping that God will come again and wake them up, resurrection. Am I right? Can anyone validate? Don't some people believe this? That's why they bury the coffins. Of course, the body will go away. And there is actually, in Arizona, there's a place where about $50,000 you pay, and they'll preserve your dead body, waiting for the science to advance so that you'll come back to life. You can look up. And many people are lying down there in that place, in their bodies, hoping to come back to life at a later time. But it is a fact that we are not this body. We have so many evidences. I'll just tell a simple story and then I'll talk about some scientific research. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a great devotee, Nrsimhananda Brahmachari. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. Krishna told us, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja. But not much has happened. So therefore Krishna personally came to teach. This time not to demand. There he demanded, you give up everything and surrender unto me. But we have so much false ego, we will not surrender. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came as a devotee to actually inspire us by himself practicing Krishna consciousness. So he was in Jagannath Puri. He grew up in Nadia and he took sannyas. He went to Jagannath Puri for 6 years. He went on a tour, particularly South Indian tour. So he came back. After he came back, he in the beginning wanted to go to Vrindavan. That didn't happen. Mother Shachi told him, you reside in Jagannath Puri so that I can get news of you. So he obliged a little bit, went on a tour, came back, and then he wanted to go visit Vrindavan. So on the way to Vrindavan, he goes through Bengal. He goes to Vidyanagar. And then he delivers a lot of people who actually people offended Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was in Grihastha ashram. And one of the reasons he took sannyas is because as a Grihastha, when he was preaching, nobody would listen to him. Or some people only would listen to him. And they don't understand. They think, oh, he's just one amongst us. And he thought, if I take sannyas, because as a social custom, a sannyasi must be respected, so they will commit less offenses if I take sannyas. This is the difference between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and other forms. Krishna, he killed the demons. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so kind that, oh, you are committing, it is becoming an offense when you criticize me. Therefore, instead of, you suffering for the sin, let me take sannyas so that you will not commit any more offenses. You will at least respect me because I'm a sannyasi. So you can see there's no one as compassionate as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So but still those people, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas and their hearts changed, they came and asked for forgiveness. He also went to Kuliagram, which is modern day Navadvip. So then there, Nrsimhananda Brahmachari was there. So there also Chaitanya Mahaprabhu forgave Gopal Chapal, who offended Srivas Pandit, and he got leprosy. So this time when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you ask forgiveness from Srivas Pandit. And he becomes healed. So then from there, when Narasimhananda Brahmachari saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going to Vrindavan, so Narasimhananda Brahmachari, he had so much devotion to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Like, Mahaprabhu is walking on his bare feet. I want to construct a nice road for him. So he meditates on the Lord. He constructs the road with nice jewels and everything. And then he puts flowers with no stems in them so that it will be like nice cushion. And on the either side, he plants nice trees, bakula trees, other trees that have these beautiful flowers. And then he constructs lakes in between. And he constructs nice gardens, and there's a breeze coming from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The breeze is carrying the nice fragrance of the flowers. And then he puts all kinds of birds along the way, chirping, making beautiful sounds. And in this way, he's constructing the road. And of course, is he really doing it? He's meditating it. He's meditating on it. Is that really happening? So then he goes to Ramakeli. And this is the place where Rupa and Sanatana Goswami are working as ministers in the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. So then they secretly come and meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And they tell, you are going with hundreds and thousands of followers. Of course, they take shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with the straw in their mouth. They beg for the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu gives them the names Rupa and Sanatana. And just before leaving, they say, it is not good for you to go with all these thousands of people. This is the Muslim king. He'll become envious of you and may cause some harm. You better travel with maybe a couple of people. Don't take all these thousands and thousands of people with you. So then he goes to, from there, Kanaya Natashala, where a lot of Krishna's pastimes are performed. And then at night, when nobody's saying, then he does something else. So here Narasimhananda Brahmachari is still in Kulia. As the Lord is moving, he's constructing. He's going along with the Lord in his spiritual form, and he is doing all this work for the Lord. And the Lord is accepting the service. And after Kanaya Natashala, he could not construct anymore. And he comes again into his body. And he wakes up. Why am I not able to do this? And he tells everybody, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not going to Vrindavan. Everybody, oh really? How do you know? No, he's not going. And soon they find out that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not going to Vrindavan. And he returns back to Jagannath Puri. Actually, he goes to Shantipur for some time. Mother Shachi comes in and serves him again, prasadam for 7 days or something. So everybody knows he didn't go to Vrindavan. But he already told Nanda Brahmachari. How did he know? So in his spiritual body, he was rendering the service, and Mahaprabhu, because he's not going, and his service also stopped. So this living on a separate spiritual platform, that we are not the body, is a fact. It's not some something that Krishna is saying. But the point is, we do not know about it. But of course, there are experiences in this world. In University of Virginia, can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So in University of Virginia, there's a department called Perceptual Studies, Division of Perceptual Studies. And they are, actually this was established around, I believe in 1967. Yeah, it says here. So Srila Prabhupada came in 1965 to the West. So there's lots of research going on. And this guy here, he is Dr. Tucker. And then there is Dr. Bruce Grayson. These two people, they are doing some research on what is it that remains? Is there something that remains after this body dies? What remains after the death? And I'll show you a video where they talk about these things. I believe I'll be able to transmit audio. Let me 920. By the way, this guy here, John Cleese, he's a English movie actor and a comedian. Skip ads. Okay, let me stop here. So I believe I should tell it to, I should stop first and then go to audio settings. Now when I share my screen, advanced. I can say share computer sound. Okay. All right. Can you still see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So listen to this guy, please.
Isolated case. A recent survey of more than 100 near-death experiences in which people reported seeing things from an out-of-body perspective.
Is the audio fine? Is the audio loud enough?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay. All right. So let me.
The fly was just instructing his assistants on how to do the operation. Now, how did Al know this? How could he see this? This is not an isolated case. A recent survey of more than 100 near-death experiences in which people reported seeing things from an out-of-body perspective found that more than 90% were completely accurate in what they said. Another common feature that people report in NDEs is seeing deceased friends and family. Now, many of us would expect to see deceased loved ones when we die, so that's not so surprising. But sometimes more surprising things happen. For example, people sometimes see deceased loved ones that they thought were still alive. Eddie was a 9-year-old boy who was hospitalized in a coma from meningitis. And he was in a coma for about 36 hours before his fever finally broke. His family were gathered around him by the bedside all night long. And finally, about 3 a.m., he opened his eyes and excitedly told his parents that he had just been to heaven. And he'd seen his dead grandfather and Auntie Rosa and Uncle Lorenzo. And then he said, and I also saw my sister Teresa, who told me I had to come back. Now, Teresa was his older sister who was in college in Vermont, and as far as anyone knew, was perfectly healthy. Later that morning, when his parents went home, they immediately called the college, and they found that Teresa had, in fact, been killed in a car accident just after midnight.
Do you sometimes find the fear of what?
How did Eddie know about that? How did Eddie know at home? they immediately called the college. And they found that Teresa had, in fact, been killed in a car accident just after midnight. How did Eddie know about that? Jack was a 25-year-old.
So this is, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So you could see here, so he's Dr. Grayson. He's saying 1,000 people, recent study of 1,000 people, and 90% of their experiences are accurate because there's a mechanism to validate. In this case, the sister died. The parents didn't know, but he knew that, he knew and he met her. And then I'm going to skip the part so that, you could see. So this is about near-death experience. And he also says that this field is very interesting for him because we say the consciousness is the product of brain. But he says in all these cases, the near-death experience cases, actually the brain is not functioning very much. Brain is in a bad shape. And still they are having experiences. And sometimes they are seeing the nurse and everybody in the room. And he says, how are they even seeing? Because their eyes are closed or they are not pointing in this direction. So that means they have some sort of eyes through which they are seeing. They have some sort of ability to experience through which they are experiencing. And they are outside the body because they are also seeing the body. And these are not just sentimental people. They're PhDs. They're doing this research, neurosciences for quite some time. And let's watch something else here from Dr. Tucker.
I'll give you a couple of examples, and this first one is one that we talked about yesterday. So we got a letter one day from this mother in Oklahoma, and she said that she and her husband were just ordinary people. Her husband was a police officer, and she worked in the county clerk's office. But for the last year, their 5-year-old boy, Ryan, had talked about a past life in Hollywood. And he would cry about Hollywood, wanting his mom to take him back there. So to try to help him kind of process this stuff, she decided to go to the public library and check out some books on Hollywood. And they were looking through one day when they came to a picture from an old movie called Night After Night. And Ryan pointed to one of the men in the picture and said, hey, Mama, that's George. We did a picture together. And he pointed to another one of the men and said, and Mama, that's me. I found me. Well, the first person he pointed to was George Raft, who was quite a well-known actor back in his day. But the other man he pointed to that he said he had been was an extra with no lines in the movie. So Ryan's mom wrote to me to see if I could help figure out who this guy was. So I went to Oklahoma and I talked with the parents, I talked with Ryan, and then afterwards, as we were trying to figure out who this person was, Ryan's mom was emailing me sometimes on a daily basis with all these details that Ryan was giving about his past life. He was describing quite a life that, to be honest, I thought was rather unlikely for an extra with no lines in a movie. Eventually, with the help of a Hollywood archivist, we were able to figure out who this guy was. This archivist, she went to the library of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, got all the materials on the movie Night After Night, and there was one picture that included an identification of this guy, and he was a fellow named Marty Martin, who died in 1964. It turned out that Marty Martin did have quite a life. So Ryan said how he had danced on stage in New York, and Marty Martin danced on Broadway. Ryan said he then went to Hollywood and worked in the movies, which Marty Martin did, mostly working on dancing in movies. He said that he then worked for an agency, and Marty Martin started a successful talent agency. In fact, Ryan said it was an agency where people changed their names, and then Marty Martin worked at a talent agency. Ryan said how he had seen the world from big boats and talked about visiting Paris. Marty Martin and his wife went to Europe on the Queen Mary, and we have pictures of them in Paris. Ryan said he had a big house with a swimming pool, which Marty Martin did, and Ryan said that the street address had the word rock or mount in it, and Marty Martin lived on North Roxbury. Ryan also said one time that he didn't understand why God would let you get to be 61 and then make you come back again as a baby. Which is sort of an interesting philosophical question on its own, but we got Marty Martin's death certificate, which said that he was 59. But then I talked with his daughter and with his stepson, who both said no, he was actually 61. So I looked into it, and I found 3 census records, 2 marriage listings, and a passenger list that all gave ages for Marty Martin that meant, in fact, he was 61 when he died and not 59. And altogether, we verified that over 50 of Ryan's statements matched with Marty Martin's life. Another example that I will tell you about is...
So this is, quite interesting.
Srinivasacarya Prabhu.
Yes.
I just recently watched on Netflix a series called Surviving Death on University of Virginia studies, and these are exactly the studies that are in the series.
Great.
So
Great.
Netflix has a 4-part series.
Oh, wow.
On NDEs, near-death experiences, reincarnations, and Marty Martin is in there. And there's another kid who was in Second World War who died in a plane crash.
Yes. Yes.
So
yes.
it's in a whole series called Surviving Death.
Yeah, that's good.
If
There's
I'm
one more I want to show.
Sujata Mataji, did you watch it?
Okay, one second. I'll show you one more thing, just for a few seconds. This is important conclusion.
Conversation with her, a normal conversation in which they sort of went over family affairs, family events, things that had been happening. The woman told me, she said, it felt like I was talking to Rip Van Winkle. Another experience like this that was a similar one that was actually reported in a special issue of Time magazine that came out several years ago. It was reported by a physician named Scott Haig. And this special issue of Time was devoted to talking about the mind-brain problem, mind-brain issues. And nearly all of the issue, or really all of the issue, was taking the position that is the predominant position in science today, which is that the brain produces the mind, produces consciousness, and that therefore consciousness is totally and wholly dependent on the brain.
So that's all I wanted to show on that one. You see what she said, how the modern science, they take this predominant position of brain as the center, and that's the one that producing the mind and consciousness, which we don't agree. According to Bhagavad Gita, we are very clear on the gross body is the one which has all these things, but there is subtle body which is superior to the gross body, and there's soul which is even superior to the subtle body. And these things have been there with us in the Vedic culture, in the Vedic texts all the time. But we can see now they are making progress, but she makes another statement that it's hard to get funding for these kind of things, right? And I believe it's her, or it was Tucker who said that science has to come out, of its domain, of its field is purely material, right? It has to come out of matter as its field and also investigate something beyond matter, which is the spirit. Also, they should look into it, not just the matter. So I will stop here. Are there any comments, questions from anyone?
I have a comment and a question.
Yes, Prabhu.
One is that there was I can't remember the scientist's name. He may have been at the University of Virginia before these two. He did huge amount of research on reincarnation and wrote a book, 15 Cases That Suggest Reincarnation.
Ian Stevenson. Ian Stevenson, Prabhu. Ian Stevenson, Prabhu.
No, there's someone else. And one of his stories was actually carried in the BTG, a story of a girl who was born in a village in India. And this scientist and his crew went and interviewed the girl. And she described how she was alive in another village and got married and this and that. The family had never been to that village. So eventually the scientist took the family to the village. The girl walked right up to the house, but she started crying because after she died, they had changed the door of the house. So when they took her inside the house, she identified every person there, but when she saw the person that was her husband, because she grew up in India, she immediately became a little bit shy. So a lot of studies in that regard. Here's my question though. So the doctor who was describing these near-death experiences described how, well, I saw my grandfather and I saw my aunt, but that's not according to our philosophy, because the soul goes on and takes another body. So then how do we understand that?
Yeah, very good question. I was thinking about the same, but we do believe in what's called Pitraloka, right? Ancestors, where the ancestors will be there. So that's a place where, who have these family attachments and stuff. Pitraloka is one of the things. And most likely this Mormon idea of, I'll go with my cat and dog and everybody over there. So my speculation is some sort of Pitraloka is what, that's not necessarily the spiritual world that they are thinking, but, some sort of Pitraloka is kind of matches up with our stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story, Prabhu. That was very nice. And by looking at these, we know that this is just not our sentimental stuff. We are putting out something. These are science people, right? If science is impartial and they're really, objective, they should look into these things.
Yesterday, P.R. Prabhu mentioned a case that Sadhaput wrote about in one of his books, because according to science, the convolutions in the brain are indicative of a person's ability to think. And Sadhaput described this person who had a completely flat brain, no convolutions, and yet he was a completely functioning, intelligent person.
Yes. Yeah, amazing. It's amazing. So by these things, we can put faith in Krishna's words. Yeah, because we're not so pure, we doubt whether this is true or not. It's true, Mahaprabhu is true, this process is true. We should have faith in Srila Prabhupada and follow Srila Prabhupada. Okay, we'll stop here. We're at 4 after. Raj Prabhu, you have your quiz, or should we end?
I have, Prabhu.
Okay.
If you want to, it will be short quiz for today.
Okay.
I'll posting it.
Okay. Looks like everyone answered. Okay, we'll take more 5 seconds. All right. Everyone is, thank you. Here you go. Okay, the quick discussion. Who can understand the utility of violence? That is a man situated in complete knowledge of scriptural knowledge, right? So that's correct, 100. Which story of Bhagavatam was discussed today? So Prabhuji mentioned about Ajamila story. So what does the analogy of surgeon in knives indicates here? Okay, that's correct, at least 17% and 17 devotee answer correct. The surgical operation is not meant to kill the patient, but to cure. Why Arjuna's fighting and killing is not a violence? So if you see the purport, it says that when Krishna orders the violence, it is for supreme justice. That is and also for administration justice, so-called violence is permitted because anyway. So this is administration of justice, right? This is also part of purport. So where did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met Rupa Goswami? It is Ramakeli. And last is Navadipa, is also area also Kuliagram. That's what Prabhuji mentioned today. So that's all. Thank you everyone for participating in the quiz. Hare Krishna.
Nice questions, Rasraj Prabhu.
Thank you.
Kripā sindhu bheva patitanam
Patitanam
vaishnavebhyo namo
Vaishnavebhyo
namaha.
namo namah.
Antakoti
Antakoti
Vaishnava.
Vaishnava.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada.